Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Science universe. Tonight we're going to drift into the quiet, hidden world of mushrooms, those gentle beings that emerge from the forest floor like nature's own lanterns, appearing silently after rain and disappearing just as softly back into the earth. Mushrooms are among the most mysterious and fascinating organisms on our planet. They are not plants, nor animals, but something entirely their own. Ancient beings that have been quietly shaping our world for hundreds of millions of years. Some glow in the dark like tiny stars scattered across the forest floor. Others can live for thousands of years, growing into vast networks beneath our feet that we never see. In the shadowy places where mushrooms thrive, under fallen logs, in the rich soil of forests, even in the cracks of city sidewalks, an entire hidden universe unfolds. They communicate with trees, heal damaged ecosystems, and create some of the most intricate and beautiful forms in nature. Some are smaller than your fingernail, others larger than dinner plates, and a few grow so vast they could cover entire cities. If you enjoy these gentle journeys into the natural world, I invite you to like and subscribe, or simply share a thought in the comments. It helps others find their way here too, one peaceful soul at a time. But for now, let your breathing slow and your mind settle as we explore the quiet mysteries of mushrooms. And if you're ready, let's begin our journey into this fascinating hidden kingdom. Mushrooms are not actually plants or animals. For most of human history, we grouped mushrooms with plants because they seem to grow from the earth and stay in one place. But science has revealed something far more interesting. Mushrooms belong to their own kingdom of life, as different from plants as they are from animals. Unlike plants, mushrooms cannot make their own food from sunlight. They have no leaves, no roots, and no chlorophyll. Instead, they feed by breaking down dead and decaying matter, recycling the nutrients back into the soil. In this way, they serve as nature's clean-up crew, quietly transforming death back into life. Yet they're not like animals either. They don't move around hunting for food, and their bodies are built in completely different ways. Mushrooms are something unique, ancient organisms that have found their own path through the story of life on Earth. What we call a mushroom is actually just the fruiting body. When you see a mushroom popping up from the ground, you're only seeing a tiny fraction of the organism. It's like looking at an apple and thinking, that's the entire tree. The real mushroom, the main body of the fungus, lives hidden underground as a network of thread-like structures called mycelium. These mycelial networks can stretch for miles beneath the forest floor, connecting trees and plants in an intricate web of communication and nutrient sharing. The mushroom we see above ground is just the reproductive structure, like a flower that produces spores instead of seeds. Most of the time, this vast underground organism remains completely invisible to us, working quietly in the darkness, breaking down organic matter and facilitating the exchange of nutrients between plants. It's only when conditions are just right, usually after warm rain, that it sends up these visible mushrooms to spread its spores. Some fungi can live for thousands of years. While the mushrooms we see are often short-lived, lasting only days or weeks, the fungal networks they belong to can persist for extraordinarily long periods. In Oregon, scientists have discovered a single fungal organism that covers over 2,400 acres and is estimated to be between 2,000 and 8,000 years old. This ancient being has been quietly living beneath the forest, growing slowly through soil and wood, connecting with tree roots and cycling nutrients through the ecosystem. It has witnessed the rise and fall of countless generations of trees, the coming and going of seasons, the slow changes in climate over millennia. To think that something so ancient and so vast exists mostly unseen beneath our feet is both humbling and wonderful. These fungal elders remind us that life operates on timescales far beyond human experience, and that some of Earth's oldest residents are the quiet, invisible ones. Mushrooms appear in over 140,000 known species. The diversity of mushrooms is staggering. Scientists have identified more than 140,000 species of fungi, and they estimate there could be as many as 5 million species in total, meaning we've discovered only a small fraction of the world's fungal diversity. Yet for all this diversity, we're still discovering new species regularly. Every year, scientists describe hundreds of new mushroom species found in forests, deserts, caves, and even in urban environments. The fungal kingdom is far from fully explored. Many mushrooms have healing properties. For thousands of years, humans have recognized that certain mushrooms possess remarkable healing properties. Traditional Chinese medicine has long used reishi mushrooms as a tonic for longevity and immune health. Native American tribes used chaga mushrooms to treat various ailments. Ancient Egyptians considered mushrooms to be plants of immortality. Modern science has begun to understand the compounds that make these mushrooms so beneficial. Many contain powerful antioxidants, immune-boosting polysaccharides, and other bioactive compounds. Some mushrooms show promise in fighting cancer, reducing inflammation, supporting heart health, and even protecting against neurological diseases. The lion's mane mushroom, with its cascading white spines, contains compounds that may help protect and repair nerve cells. Turkey tail mushrooms contain polysaccharopeptides that support immune function. Cordyceps mushrooms, traditionally found at high altitudes in Tibet, are being studied for their potential to improve athletic performance and combat fatigue. What's particularly fascinating is that these healing compounds often develop as the mushroom's own defense mechanisms, ways to protect themselves from bacteria, other fungi, or environmental stresses. In sharing these compounds with us, mushrooms offer a kind of chemical wisdom accumulated over millions of years of evolution. Some mushrooms glow in the dark. Deep in the forest at night, if you know where to look, you might encounter one of nature's most magical phenomena: mushrooms that glow with their own light. These bioluminescent fungi produce a soft, eerie green light that can illuminate the forest floor like scattered emeralds. The foxfire fungus, found growing on decaying wood, creates this ethereal glow through a chemical reaction similar to that of fireflies. The light is produced when a compound called luciferin reacts with oxygen in the presence of an enzyme called luciferase. This reaction is incredibly efficient, producing light with almost no heat. Scientists believe this ghostly light might serve several purposes. It could attract insects that help disperse spores, or it might deter animals from eating the mushroom. Some researchers suggest it could even help the fungus in ways we don't yet understand. Standing in a dark forest and discovering these glowing mushrooms is an unforgettable experience. They seem like something from a fairy tale. Gentle light scattered through the darkness, reminding us that nature is full of wonders that most people never see. The largest living organism on Earth is a mushroom. In the Blue Mountains of Oregon grows what may be the largest living organism on our planet. It's not a whale, not a giant sequoia, but a fungus, specifically an Armillaria ostoyae, also known as the honey mushroom. This single organism covers an area of about 2,400 acres. That's nearly 4 square miles. If you could see its boundaries from above, it would be larger than 1,600 football fields. Scientists determined it was all one organism by taking samples from different areas and analysing their DNA, finding them to be genetically identical. Most of this massive organism lives underground as mycelium, the thread-like structures that make up the main body of the fungus. Only occasionally does it produce the visible mushrooms that we would recognise. The organism feeds primarily on tree roots, and has been growing for an estimated 2,000 to 8,000 years. What's remarkable is that despite its enormous size, this giant fungus goes about its life quietly and mostly invisibly. It doesn't announce its presence or demand attention. It simply grows, slowly and steadily, connecting with trees, cycling nutrients, and maintaining its ancient rhythm beneath the forest floor. Mushrooms connect trees in a wood-wide web. Beneath every forest floor lies one of nature's most sophisticated communication networks, Fungal threads called mycelium form connections with tree roots, creating what scientists playfully call the Wood Wide Web, a vast underground internet that allows trees to share resources and information. Through these fungal connections, a mother tree can send nutrients to her struggling seedlings growing in the shade. A dying tree can transfer its remaining resources to its neighbours. Trees under attack by insects can send chemical warnings through the network, prompting other trees to boost their defences. This network is incredibly extensive. In a single teaspoon of forest soil, there can be several miles of these fungal threads, connecting plants across vast areas. A single mushroom network might link hundreds of trees and plants, creating a community that shares resources and supports its weaker members. The relationship is mutually beneficial. The fungi receive sugars from the trees, which the trees produce through photosynthesis. In return, the fungi provide the trees with water and nutrients, particularly phosphorus and nitrogen, which they're especially good at extracting from soil and decomposing matter. Trees actually trade with fungi through chemical signals. The communication between trees and fungi is far more sophisticated than simple nutrient exchange. Trees and fungi engage in complex negotiations, trading resources based on need and availability, much like economic transactions. When a tree needs phosphorus, it might increase its production of sugars and offer them to fungal partners in exchange. The fungi, able to detect these chemical signals, respond by increasing their delivery of phosphorus to that tree. If the trade isn't beneficial, either partner can reduce their investment in the relationship. Different fungi offer different services. Some are better at acquiring phosphorus, others excel at finding nitrogen or water. Trees often maintain relationships with multiple fungal partners, diversifying their support network. During times of stress, such as drought or disease, these trading relationships can become vital for survival. Scientists have observed that trees will actually pay premium prices, offering more sugars, to fungi that provide rare or particularly needed resources. It's a sophisticated market economy, operating entirely through chemical signals, all happening silently beneath our feet. Some mushrooms can break down toxic pollutants. Certain mushrooms possess an almost miraculous ability to clean up environmental damage. These fungi can break down toxic chemicals, heavy metals, and even radioactive materials, transforming harmful pollutants into harmless compounds. After the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, scientists discovered that certain fungi were not just surviving in the highly radioactive environment, they were actually thriving. These mushrooms appeared to be using radiation as an energy source, similar to how plants use sunlight. The melanin in their cell walls was converting gamma radiation into chemical energy. Other mushrooms show remarkable abilities to clean up oil spills, industrial chemicals, and agricultural pesticides. Oyster mushrooms can break down petroleum products. Winecap mushrooms can digest heavy metals. Some species can even neutralize chemical weapons and industrial solvents. This process, called mycoremediation, offers hope for cleaning up some of humanity's worst environmental mistakes. Mushrooms work slowly and quietly, requiring no external energy source, producing no harmful byproducts, and actually improving soil health as they work. They represent nature's own approach to environmental cleanup, patient, thorough, and ultimately healing. Fairy rings are actually ancient fungal networks. Those mysterious circles of mushrooms that appear in lawns and fields, traditionally called fairy rings, are actually the visible signs of very old fungal networks growing outward from a central point. As the fungus exhausts nutrients in the centre, it expands outward, creating an ever-widening ring. Some of these fairy rings are incredibly ancient. Scientists have found rings in England that are estimated to be over 700 years old, meaning the fungal network creating them has been slowly expanding for centuries. The largest known fairy ring in France is over 2,000 feet across and may be several hundred years old. The folklore surrounding these rings is rich and varied. Some cultures saw them as places where fairies danced. others as portals to magical realms. Some consider them lucky, others dangerous. In reality, they're simply the footprints of patient, persistent organisms going about their quiet business of growth and survival. What's remarkable is that the fungus creating a fairy ring might produce visible mushrooms, only once or twice a year, or even less frequently. Most of the time, the ring exists only as invisible mycelium underground, slowly expanding, quietly processing nutrients, waiting for the right conditions to reveal itself above ground. Mother trees nurture their young through fungal networks. One of the most touching discoveries in forest ecology is how mother trees use fungal networks to care for their offspring. Large established trees can identify their own seedlings through chemical signals and preferentially share resources with them through fungal connections. Dr. Suzanne Simard's research has shown that mother trees will send excess carbon to their young, especially when the seedlings are struggling in low-light conditions. They can also send nitrogen, phosphorus, and even defense compounds to help their offspring survive and grow. As mother trees age or become damaged, they increase their giving, transferring even more resources to the next generation. It's as if they sense their mortality and want to ensure their genetic legacy survives. Some dying trees will dump their remaining resources into the network, a final gift to the forest community. This nurturing behavior extends beyond a tree's own offspring. Mother trees often support the entire forest community, sharing resources with many different species. They serve as hubs in the fungal network, connecting young and old, different species, healthy and struggling individuals in a vast support system. Mushrooms have been recycling Earth's waste for 400 million years. Long before humans existed, long before flowers bloomed or grass grew, mushrooms were already performing one of Earth's most essential functions, breaking down dead organic matter and recycling its nutrients back into the ecosystem. For 400 million years, fungi have been the planet's decomposers, quietly processing fallen leaves, dead trees, animal remains, and all manner of organic waste. Without them, Earth would be buried under layers of undecomposed matter, and the nutrients essential for life would remain locked up in dead tissue. This ancient recycling system is incredibly efficient. Fungi can break down complex organic compounds that nothing else can handle. They produce powerful enzymes that can dissolve lignin, the tough compound that gives wood its strength. They can process cellulose, chitin, keratin, and hundreds of other biological materials. What's remarkable is that this system has been running continuously for hundreds of millions of years, never failing, never becoming overwhelmed, constantly adapting to new types of organic matter as evolution produces new forms of life. It's perhaps the most successful and longest-running recycling program in Earth's history. Some fungi can control the behavior of insects. In the depths of tropical forests, certain fungi have evolved one of nature's most sophisticated forms of biological control. These zombie fungi can infect insects and completely take over their behavior, turning them into unwilling servants. The cordyceps fungus infects ants by releasing spores that penetrate the ant's exoskeleton. Once inside, the fungus begins to grow, but rather than killing the ant immediately, it manipulates its behavior. The infected ant becomes compelled to climb to a specific height and location that provides optimal conditions for the fungus to reproduce. At this precisely chosen spot, the fungus kills its host and begins to grow a fruiting body from the ant's head. This mushroom then releases spores that can infect other ants below, continuing the cycle. The fungus's control is so precise that infected ants from the same species always climb to similar heights and positions. Different species of these fungi have evolved to control different insects. Some control beetles, others control flies or other ants. Each has evolved its control mechanisms to perfectly suit its particular host. It's a reminder that fungi, despite appearing simple and passive, can be incredibly sophisticated in their survival strategies. Mushrooms come in almost every colour imaginable. The world of mushrooms is a painter's palette of colours spanning virtually every hue in the spectrum. From the brilliant red caps of fly agaric mushrooms to the deep purple of amethyst deceiver mushrooms, these organisms display a stunning array of colours that can rival any flower garden. Some mushrooms are pure white, like fresh snow scattered across the forest floor. Others glow with golden yellows, warm oranges, or deep burgundy reds. The blue-staining bolete turns bright blue when touched, as if bruised by invisible hands. Certain shelf fungi display concentric rings of brown, tan, and cream like natural artwork growing on tree trunks. Perhaps most striking are the mushrooms that seem to shimmer with metallic hues, bronze, copper, and silver tones that catch the light and seem almost artificial in their brilliance. The golden chanterelle lives up to its name with its rich, golden coloration, while the oyster mushroom can range from cream to grey to pink to yellow. These colours aren't just for beauty, they serve important functions. Some warn of toxicity, others attract insects for spore dispersal, and many help with camouflage or protection from ultraviolet light. Yet their beauty remains undeniable, a reminder that nature creates art wherever life takes hold. Some mushrooms change colour when touched or bruised. Among the most fascinating mushrooms are those that react to touch by changing colour, as if they were aware of being handled. The blue-staining boletes are perhaps the most dramatic examples. Their pale flesh turns bright blue within seconds of being cut or bruised, then often fades to green or brown. This colour change is caused by chemical reactions. When the mushroom cells are damaged, enzymes come into contact with compounds that were previously separated, creating new coloured molecules. It's like having a built-in indicator system that reveals when the mushroom has been damaged. The speed of these colour changes can be startling. Some mushrooms turn blue almost instantly upon being touched, while others change more slowly over the course of minutes. Some return to their original colour, while others remain permanently altered. The intensity of the colour change often indicates how fresh the mushroom is. Older specimens typically react less dramatically. This reactive quality makes these mushrooms feel almost alive in a more immediate way than other fungi. They respond to your presence, to your touch, creating an interactive experience that connects you directly with the living organism. The fly agaric is the most recognizable mushroom in the world. With its bright red cap dotted with white spots, the fly agaric mushroom has become the archetypal mushroom image, appearing in fairy tales, children's books, Christmas decorations, and garden ornaments around the world. This iconic appearance has deep roots in human culture. The fly agaric appears in folklore from many different cultures across the northern hemisphere where it naturally grows. Some historians believe it may have inspired the red and white colours associated with Santa Claus, as Siberian shamans who used these mushrooms in their practices traditionally wore red and white clothing. The name fly agaric comes from its traditional use as an insecticide. People would break up the mushrooms and leave them in milk to attract and poison flies. Despite its toxic properties to insects and its psychoactive effects on humans, the fly agaric is not typically deadly to people, though it can cause illness. What's remarkable is how this single species has captured human imagination across so many cultures and centuries. Its bright, cheerful appearance seems to embody something magical about mushrooms, making it the perfect ambassador for the entire fungal kingdom. Some mushrooms look like coral or sea creatures. The diversity of mushroom forms extends far beyond the classic cap and stem structure most people imagine. Some mushrooms look so unusual that they seem like they belong underwater rather than on land. Coral fungi create branching structures that look exactly like colourful coral reefs. These delicate, intricate forms can be white, yellow, pink, or purple, branching and rebranching into complex, beautiful patterns. They grow on dead wood or soil, creating what looks like tiny underwater gardens in the forest. The bearded tooth mushroom produces cascades of white spines that hang down like icicles or the tentacles of a sea anemone. Lion's mane mushrooms create shaggy, flowing masses of white spines that can grow quite large, resembling the mane of a white lion, or perhaps a sea creature waving in invisible currents. Birds' nest fungi create perfect tiny cups, each containing what look like miniature eggs. These eggs are actually spore-containing structures that get splashed out by raindrops. The resemblance to actual bird nests is so strong that early naturalists were confused about whether they were looking at fungi or some unusual animal creation. Puffball mushrooms can grow larger than basketballs. Among the most satisfying mushrooms to encounter are the puffballs, round white fungi that can range from marble size to truly enormous. The largest puffballs can grow bigger than basketballs, weighing several pounds and containing trillions of spores. When young, puffballs have firm white flesh throughout, no gills, no stem, just solid mushroom tissue that's often described as having a texture like tofu or marshmallow. As they mature, their interior transforms into a mass of powdery spores. Eventually, the outer skin develops an opening, and the slightest touch or puff of wind releases clouds of spores into the air. Giant puffballs are particularly impressive. These smooth white spheres can appear overnight in fields or lawns, looking almost like someone has scattered giant white balloons across the landscape. A single large puffball might contain over 20 trillion spores, more than enough to theoretically cover the entire Earth with mushrooms if conditions were right. The sight of a mature puffball releasing its spores is unforgettable. A gentle kick or touch releases a brown cloud that billows out like smoke, carrying countless potential new mushrooms on the breeze. It's one of nature's most dramatic examples of reproduction in action. Shelf fungi create living art on tree trunks. Growing on the sides of trees like natural shelves, bracket fungi or shelf fungi create some of the most beautiful and enduring fungal displays in the forest. Unlike the ephemeral mushrooms that appear and disappear quickly, many shelf fungi are perennial, growing larger and more intricate year after year. Some develop concentric bands of colour, rings of brown, tan, grey and cream that mark their annual growth like tree rings. Others have smooth, velvety surfaces, while some develop intricate textures that seem almost carved by an artist's hand. The turkey tail fungus displays bands of colour that really do resemble the fanned tail of a turkey, while the artist's conch can be carved and drawn upon, with marks remaining permanently visible. These shelf fungi can persist for many years, slowly expanding as they consume the dead wood of their host tree. Some become quite large, creating dramatic displays that can be seen from considerable distances. They serve as both decomposers, breaking down dead wood, and as tiny ecosystems providing habitat for insects, spiders, and other small creatures. What's remarkable is how they seem to grow in perfect harmony with the trees they inhabit, their curved forms following the contours of the bark, their colours often complementing the greys and browns of the tree trunk. They're nature's own sculptural installations, each one unique, each one beautiful. Some mushrooms have patterns that look hand-painted. The artistry displayed by many mushrooms is so precise and beautiful that they appear to have been decorated by skilled painters. The patterns, stripes, spots, and colour gradations often seem too perfect to be natural. The honey mushroom displays delicate scales across its cap that look like they've been carefully painted on with a fine brush. Some Amanita species have intricate patterns of white patches scattered across coloured caps, each patch perfectly placed as if by design. Certain boletes have caps that fade from one colour to another in smooth gradients that would be difficult to achieve with paint. Even more remarkable are the mushrooms that seem to have geometric patterns built into their structure. Some display perfect concentric circles, others have radial patterns that emanate from the centre, like spokes on a wheel. The precision of these patterns reflects the underlying mathematical principles that govern growth and development throughout nature. These natural artworks are temporary, most lasting only days or weeks before decomposing back into the soil. Yet during their brief existence, they add moments of unexpected beauty to the landscape, reminding us that nature is constantly creating art all around us, if we only take the time to notice. Mushrooms produce thousands of unique chemical compounds. The chemical complexity of mushrooms is staggering. Scientists have identified thousands of unique compounds produced by different mushroom species, far more than are found in most plants or animals. These compounds serve various functions. Some protect against bacteria and other fungi, others deter animals from eating them, and still others facilitate communication with plant partners. Many of these compounds have proven useful to humans. Penicillin, one of the most important antibiotics in medical history, comes from a fungus. Cyclosporin, crucial for organ transplant patients, is derived from a soil fungus. Statins, widely used to lower cholesterol, were originally discovered in fungi. What's particularly fascinating is that mushrooms often produce these compounds only under specific conditions: when threatened, when competing with other organisms, or when environmental conditions change. It's as if they have vast chemical libraries that they can access as needed, producing exactly the right compound for each situation. This chemical diversity represents millions of years of evolutionary experimentation. Each compound is a solution to a specific survival challenge, tested and refined over countless generations. We've barely begun to explore this chemical treasure trove, and new useful compounds are being discovered regularly. Some mushrooms can glow continuously for days. The bioluminescent mushrooms that produce their own light don't just flash briefly. Many can glow steadily for days or even weeks. This consistent light production requires a continuous supply of energy and the right chemical conditions, making it a significant investment for the mushroom. The light produced is typically a cool, green glow, similar to that produced by fireflies but much more sustained. Some species produce light only in their mycelium, the underground threads, while others illuminate their entire fruiting body. A few species glow only at certain times or under specific conditions. Scientists believe this sustained lighting serves multiple purposes. The light might attract nocturnal insects that help disperse spores, similar to how flowers attract pollinators. It could also serve as a warning signal, indicating to potential predators that the mushroom is toxic or unpalatable. Standing in a dark forest and encountering these glowing mushrooms is an almost otherworldly experience. The steady, gentle light seems impossible, like discovering that some trees naturally produce electric bulbs. It's a reminder that nature contains wonders that seem almost magical, even when we understand the science behind them. Mushrooms can produce natural antibiotics. Long before humans discovered penicillin, mushrooms were producing their own antibiotics to protect themselves from bacterial infections. Many mushroom species create compounds that can kill or inhibit bacteria, giving them a significant advantage in the competitive world of soil microorganisms. Different mushrooms produce different types of antibiotics. Some are broad-spectrum, effective against many types of bacteria. Others are highly specific, targeting particular bacterial species. Some work by destroying bacterial cell walls, others by interfering with bacterial metabolism. What's remarkable is that mushrooms often produce multiple antibiotic compounds simultaneously, creating cocktails that are more effective than any single compound alone. They can also modify their antibiotic production in response to specific threats, ramping up production when bacterial competition increases. This natural antibiotic production explains why many mushrooms remain remarkably free from bacterial contamination, even in environments teeming with microorganisms. They've created their own sterile zones through chemical warfare, quietly waging microscopic battles for survival. The smell of mushrooms comes from dozens of different compounds. The distinctive earthy, rich aroma of mushrooms comes from complex mixtures of volatile organic compounds. Each species produces its own unique combination of these chemicals, creating scent profiles as distinctive as fingerprints. Some compounds contribute notes that we might describe as nutty, others as fruity or floral. Some mushrooms produce compounds that smell like chocolate, others like roses or even like the ocean. The deathcap mushroom, despite being deadly poisonous, produces a honey-like fragrance that can be quite appealing. These scent compounds serve various purposes. Some attract insects or animals that help disperse spores. Others might repel potential threats. Some may simply be byproducts of the mushroom's metabolism, accidental fragrances created by normal cellular processes. Interestingly, many of the compounds that create mushroom aromas are the same ones that contribute to their flavors. The earthy compound geosmin, produced by many fungi, is responsible for both the smell of fresh soil after rain and the distinctive taste of certain mushrooms. Some mushrooms taste like chicken or seafood. The culinary world of mushrooms extends far beyond the familiar button. Mushrooms found in grocery stores. Many wild mushrooms have flavors that can be surprisingly similar to meat or seafood, making them prized by vegetarians and gourmet cooks alike. Oyster mushrooms have a delicate flavor reminiscent of actual oysters, with a subtle briny quality that makes them excellent in seafood dishes. Chicken of the woods mushrooms have a texture and taste so similar to chicken that they're often used as a direct substitute in recipes. Lobster mushrooms have a reddish colour and a flavour that many people find remarkably similar to cooked lobster. Lion's mane mushrooms can be prepared to mimic crab cakes or pulled pork, their stringy texture lending itself perfectly to these applications. Beefsteak mushrooms, as their name suggests, can taste remarkably similar to red meat when properly prepared. These flavour similarities aren't coincidental. They reflect similar protein structures and chemical compounds. The umami taste, often described as savoury or meaty, is particularly strong in many mushrooms due to their high glutamate content. This natural flavour enhancement is why mushrooms are such valuable ingredients in cooking. Mushrooms concentrate minerals from the soil. Mushrooms are remarkably efficient at extracting and concentrating minerals from their environment. Their extensive mycelial networks act like biological mining operations, drawing minerals from the soil and concentrating them in their fruiting bodies. This mineral concentration can be quite dramatic. Some mushrooms contain levels of selenium, potassium, or phosphorus, many times higher than the surrounding soil. Others concentrate trace minerals like zinc, copper, or manganese. The exact mineral profile depends on both the mushroom species and the soil composition where it grows. This mineral accumulation ability makes mushrooms nutritionally valuable. They can provide essential trace elements that might be difficult to obtain from other foods. However, it also means that mushrooms growing in contaminated soil can concentrate toxic metals like lead or cadmium, which is why wild mushroom foraging requires knowledge of local environmental conditions. The mineral concentration process is so efficient that some researchers have proposed using certain mushrooms for environmental cleanup, allowing them to extract toxic metals from contaminated soil and then safely disposing of the mineral-laden mushrooms. Certain mushrooms can enhance memory and cognitive function. Traditional medicine has long recognized certain mushrooms as brain tonics, and modern science is beginning to understand the compounds responsible for these effects. Lion's mane mushrooms contain unique compounds called herosinins and ironesins that can cross the blood-brain barrier and stimulate the production of nerve growth factor. These compounds may help protect existing neurons from damage and encourage the growth of new neural connections. Some studies suggest that regular consumption of lion's mane mushrooms might help improve memory, focus, and overall cognitive function. Other research indicates potential benefits for people with neurodegenerative conditions. Reishi mushrooms, known as the mushroom of immortality in traditional Chinese medicine, contain compounds that may help reduce stress and improve sleep quality, both important factors for cognitive health. Some studies suggest they might also have neuroprotective effects. What's particularly intriguing is that these cognitive benefits appear to be quite gentle and sustained, rather than providing the quick but temporary effects of stimulants like caffeine. The mushrooms seem to support overall brain health rather than forcing short-term performance improvements. Some mushrooms can survive being completely frozen. In the harsh environments where many mushrooms grow, The ability to survive freezing temperatures is crucial for survival. Many mushroom species have evolved remarkable adaptations that allow them to withstand being completely frozen solid and then resume normal activity when conditions improve. These mushrooms produce natural antifreeze compounds, similar to those found in Arctic fish. These compounds prevent ice crystals from forming inside their cells, which would otherwise rupture cell walls and kill the organism. Some species can survive temperatures well below the freezing point of water, remaining viable even when frozen for months. The mycelium, the underground portion of the mushroom, is particularly hardy. Even if surface mushrooms are killed by frost, the mycelial network can survive underground, protected by soil and leaf litter. When warmer weather returns, new mushrooms can emerge from this persistent underground network. This freeze tolerance allows mushrooms to thrive in environments where other organisms cannot survive. From Arctic tundra to high mountain slopes, it's one reason why mushrooms can be found in almost every environment on Earth, from the tropics to the poles. Mushrooms can lie dormant for decades before fruiting. One of the most remarkable aspects of mushroom biology is their ability to remain dormant for extended periods, sometimes decades, before producing visible fruiting bodies. The mycelial network can persist in soil or wood, slowly growing and spreading while remaining completely invisible. This dormancy allows mushrooms to wait for perfect conditions before investing the energy required to produce spores. They might wait for specific temperature and moisture combinations, particular seasons, or even specific environmental triggers like forest fires or the death of a host tree. Some mushrooms appear only every few years, others might not fruit for decades. There are documented cases of mushrooms appearing in areas where they hadn't been seen for 30 or 40 years, emerging from mycelial networks that had been patiently waiting for the right moment. This patience is a powerful survival strategy. By waiting for optimal conditions, mushrooms can ensure that their reproductive efforts are most likely to succeed, even if it means waiting a very long time for those conditions to arise. Some mushrooms only grow after forest fires. Fire creates unique ecological opportunities, and certain mushrooms have evolved specifically to take advantage of post-fire environments. These pyrophilous, fire-loving fungi remain dormant in soil for years or decades, waiting for the heat and chemical changes that accompany forest fires. The heat from fires triggers these dormant spores to germinate, and the changed soil chemistry provides ideal growing conditions. Burned wood and altered soil pH create environments where these specialized fungi can thrive without competition from other organisms that were destroyed by the fire. Morel mushrooms are perhaps the most famous fire followers. The spring after a forest fire, morels often appear in abundance in burned areas, delighting mushroom hunters who know to look in these charred landscapes. The mushrooms seem to transform the blackened, seemingly lifeless forest floor into a place of abundance and renewal. This fire-following behavior serves important ecological functions. These mushrooms help stabilize and rebuild soil after fires, beginning the slow process of forest regeneration. They break down burned organic matter and help other plants re-establish themselves in the altered ecosystem. Mushrooms can detect and respond to gravity. Despite appearing simple and passive, mushrooms demonstrate sophisticated responses to their environment, including the ability to sense and respond to gravity. This gravitational response, called gravitropism, ensures that mushroom caps grow horizontally and spores fall downward for optimal dispersal. Even when a mushroom is turned upside down, it will often reorient itself, bending its stem to position the cap correctly. The gills or pores on the underside of the cap must be precisely vertical to allow spores to fall freely under the influence of gravity. This gravitational sensing is so precise that mushrooms can detect changes in orientation of just a few degrees. Specialized cells within the mushroom tissue contain dense particles that settle in the direction of gravitational pull, providing the mushroom with a constant reference point for which way is up. This ability demonstrates that mushrooms, despite lacking nervous systems, possess sophisticated mechanisms for sensing and responding to their environment. They may appear passive, but they're constantly making adjustments to optimize their survival and reproduction. Some mushrooms are carnivorous predators. While most mushrooms feed on dead organic matter, some species have evolved to become active predators, hunting and killing living prey. These carnivorous fungi have developed sophisticated methods for capturing and consuming other organisms. Oyster mushrooms, which appear harmless growing on dead logs, are actually effective predators of microscopic worms called nematodes. The mushroom produces special structures that can noose trap nematodes, then inject them with paralyzing compounds before digesting them alive. Other predatory fungi shoot explosive spores at passing insects or small arthropods. When these spores contact their target, they germinate rapidly and begin consuming their host from the inside. Some species produce sticky traps or toxic compounds to capture their prey. This predatory behavior provides mushrooms with additional nutrients, particularly nitrogen, which can be scarce in their typical environments. It's a reminder that the peaceful appearance of mushrooms can hide surprisingly aggressive survival strategies. Mushrooms can communicate danger to each other. Recent research suggests that mushrooms may be capable of communicating with each other through their mycelial networks, sharing information about threats and environmental conditions. When one part of a fungal network encounters danger, it may send chemical or electrical signals to other parts of the network. These warning signals can travel surprisingly quickly through mycelial networks, potentially alerting distant parts of the organism to prepare defenses or change behavior. Some studies have detected electrical pulses moving through fungal networks at speeds that suggest active communication rather than passive chemical diffusion. The implications of this communication are still being studied, but it suggests that fungal networks might function as primitive nervous systems, processing and sharing information across large distances. A fungal network might function as a single, distributed intelligence, capable of coordinated responses to threats or opportunities. This communication ability adds another layer to our understanding of the Wood Wide Web. It's not just a network for sharing resources, but potentially a communication system that allows forest organisms to coordinate their responses to environmental changes. Some mushrooms can move toward food sources. While mushrooms don't walk around like animals, they do exhibit purposeful movement toward food sources. Mycelial networks can grow preferentially in directions where nutrients are more abundant, essentially allowing the fungus to forage for resources. This movement is subtle but measurable. Time-lapse photography reveals fungal networks extending tendrils toward rich sources of organic matter, sometimes changing direction when they encounter better opportunities. The fungus allocates more growth resources to pathways that lead to food, while reducing investment in less productive directions. Some fungi can even abandon areas that have become depleted, withdrawing their mycelium and redirecting growth toward more promising locations. This behavior allows them to efficiently exploit patchy food resources spread across large areas. The movement may be slow by animal standards, sometimes taking days or weeks, but it represents genuine decision-making and resource optimization behavior, suggesting that fungi possess forms of intelligence adapted to their particular way of life. Humans have been eating mushrooms for thousands of years. Archaeological evidence suggests that humans have been collecting and eating mushrooms for at least 7,000 years, and possibly much longer. Ancient cave paintings depict figures gathering mushrooms, and dried mushrooms have been found in prehistoric settlements across Europe and Asia. The famous Iceman, the 5,300-year-old mummy found in the Alps, was carrying dried mushrooms when he died, probably for medicinal purposes. Ancient civilizations from Egypt to China developed sophisticated knowledge about which mushrooms were edible, which were medicinal, and which were dangerous. Different cultures developed their own relationships with mushrooms. In some societies, mushrooms were considered food of the gods, too precious for common people. In others, they were viewed with suspicion or associated with the supernatural. These varying cultural attitudes toward mushrooms persist today in different parts of the world. What's remarkable is how widespread mushroom use has been throughout human history. Despite the risks involved in identifying edible species, people across the globe independently discovered the nutritional and medicinal value of fungi, developing complex bodies of traditional knowledge about these organisms. Ancient Egyptians believed mushrooms granted immortality. In ancient Egypt, mushrooms held a special place in both cuisine and mythology. They were considered so magical and powerful that they were reserved for pharaohs and nobility. Common people were forbidden from even touching them. Egyptian hieroglyphs refer to mushrooms as sons of the gods, sent to earth on lightning bolts. This divine association meant that mushrooms were incorporated into religious ceremonies and burial practices. They believed that eating mushrooms would help pharaohs achieve immortality and communicate with the gods in the afterlife. The Egyptians were particularly sophisticated in their mushroom cultivation and preparation. They developed methods for growing mushrooms artificially, making them one of the first cultures to practice mushroom agriculture. They also understood which species had medicinal properties and how to prepare them safely. This reverence for mushrooms influenced Egyptian art and architecture. Mushroom motifs appear in tomb paintings, temple decorations, and even in the design of columns and other architectural elements. The association between mushrooms and divine power was deeply embedded in Egyptian culture. Some mushrooms have been used as natural dyes for centuries. Long before synthetic dyes were invented, people discovered that many mushrooms could produce beautiful, lasting colours for textiles and other materials. Different species yielded different hues, from brilliant yellows and oranges to deep purples and rich browns. The process of extracting dyes from mushrooms was often complex, involving fermentation, boiling, and the addition of various mordants to help the colours bind to fabric. Master dyers guarded their secrets carefully, passing down knowledge through generations about which mushrooms to use and how to process them. Some of the most prized colours came from relatively rare mushrooms, making certain dyed fabrics extremely valuable. Purple dyes from certain fungi were sometimes worth more than gold, reserved for royalty and religious figures. The deep, rich colours produced by these natural dyes often had a quality and durability that was difficult to achieve with other materials. Even today, some artisans still use traditional mushroom dyeing techniques, appreciating the unique colours and the connection to ancient textile traditions. Each batch of mushroom dye produces slightly different results, creating unique, unrepeatable colours. Mushrooms played important roles in traditional medicine worldwide. Traditional healing systems around the world independently discovered the medicinal properties of various mushrooms. Chinese medicine has used reishi mushrooms for over 4,000 years, calling them the mushroom of immortality. Native American tribes used various fungi to treat wounds, infections, and other ailments. In Europe, birch polypore mushrooms were commonly used to treat stomach problems and as natural antiseptics. Siberian cultures used chaga mushrooms as a general tonic and immune system booster. Each culture developed its own detailed knowledge about which mushrooms were useful for specific conditions and how to prepare them safely. What's remarkable is how many of these traditional uses have been validated by modern scientific research. Compounds that traditional healers recognized as beneficial have been isolated and studied, often confirming the wisdom of ancient practices. This suggests that traditional mushroom medicine was based on careful observation and real therapeutic effects. The integration of traditional mushroom knowledge with modern scientific methods continues today, as researchers explore the medicinal potential of fungi that have been used safely for centuries in traditional healing systems. People once believed mushrooms were created by lightning strikes. Before the development of modern biology, people struggled to explain the mysterious appearance of mushrooms. Unlike plants, which grow visibly from seeds, mushrooms seem to appear suddenly and without obvious cause, often after thunderstorms. This led to the widespread belief that mushrooms were created by lightning strikes. The association was reinforced by the fact that mushrooms often appeared in fairy rings. circular patterns that people imagined might be caused by lightning hitting the ground. The sudden appearance of mushrooms after storms seemed to confirm this theory. Different cultures developed variations on this theme. Some believed that thunder gods threw lightning bolts that transformed into mushrooms. Others thought that the electrical energy of lightning could spontaneously generate life. These beliefs were so widespread that many languages contain references to mushrooms as thunder plants or lightning children. These folk explanations reveal how mysterious mushrooms were to our ancestors. Without understanding of spores, mycelium and fungal reproduction, the seemingly magical appearance of mushrooms required magical explanations. The lightning theory persisted well into the scientific age, only gradually being replaced by understanding of fungal biology. Mushroom cultivation began over 1,000 years ago. While people had been gathering wild mushrooms for millennia, deliberate mushroom cultivation began surprisingly early in human history. Chinese farmers were growing shiitake mushrooms on logs over 1,000 years ago, developing sophisticated techniques for inoculating wood with mushroom spawn. European cultivation began with oyster mushrooms and champignons, button mushrooms, in caves and cellars. French farmers discovered that mushrooms would grow well in the consistent temperature and humidity of underground spaces, leading to the development of mushroom caves that are still used today. The cultivation techniques developed over centuries were remarkably sophisticated, involving careful control of temperature, humidity, substrate preparation, and timing. Many of these traditional methods are still used in modern mushroom production, testament to the effectiveness of ancient agricultural wisdom. Mushroom cultivation represented a significant advance in human food production, allowing people to create protein-rich food from materials that would otherwise be waste. Dead wood, straw, and other organic debris could be transformed into nutritious mushrooms. Some cultures considered mushrooms to be supernatural beings. The mysterious nature of mushrooms led many cultures to attribute supernatural qualities to them. Their sudden appearance, unusual forms, and sometimes psychoactive properties made them seem like visitors from other worlds. Celtic cultures associated mushrooms with fairies and otherworldly beings. The fairy rings where mushrooms grew were thought to be magical portals, or dancing grounds for supernatural creatures. Stepping into a fairy ring was believed to transport you to the fairy realm, or at least bring you under fairy influence. Slavic folklore includes numerous stories of mushroom spirits, supernatural beings that could take the form of mushrooms or inhabit them. These spirits might help or hinder mushroom gatherers, depending on how respectfully they were treated. Some mushrooms were thought to be the homes of forest gods or nature spirits. These supernatural associations weren't entirely metaphorical. Many cultures recognized that certain mushrooms had consciousness-altering properties, which seemed to confirm their otherworldly nature. The boundary between the natural and supernatural seemed thinner in the presence of these mysterious organisms. Mushroom hunting traditions continue today across many cultures. Despite the availability of cultivated mushrooms in stores, the tradition of hunting wild mushrooms remains strong in many parts of the world. Each culture has developed its own practices, passed down through generations, about when, where, and how to search for wild fungi. Mushrooms have their own version of reproduction. The reproductive cycle of mushrooms is fascinatingly complex and unlike that of plants or animals. What we see as mushrooms are actually just the reproductive organs of much larger organisms living underground. These fruiting bodies exist solely to produce and disperse spores, the fungal equivalent of seeds. But mushroom reproduction involves more than just releasing spores. Many mushroom species have multiple mating types, sometimes dozens of different types that must find compatible partners to reproduce successfully. This system ensures genetic diversity and prevents inbreeding within fungal populations. When compatible spores meet, they fuse and begin growing as a network of cells containing nuclei from both parents. This paired nuclear stage can persist for the entire life of the fungus, sometimes hundreds of years, with the genetic material from both parents coexisting in every cell. Only when conditions are right for reproduction do these paired nuclei finally fuse, undergo meiosis, and produce new spores. It's a reproductive strategy that allows mushrooms to maintain genetic diversity while remaining patient about the timing of actual reproduction. A single mushroom can release billions of spores. The spore production capacity of mushrooms is almost incomprehensible. A large puffball mushroom might contain over 20 trillion spores, while even a modest-sized mushroom cap releases hundreds of millions of spores into the air. This massive reproductive output ensures that at least some spores will find suitable conditions for growth. These spores are incredibly tiny, often just a few micrometers across, and incredibly light. They can travel enormous distances on air currents, potentially crossing continents or even oceans. Some mushroom spores have been found in the upper atmosphere, carried by high-altitude winds to locations thousands of miles from their origin. The mathematics of spore production are staggering. If even a tiny fraction of the spores released by mushrooms successfully establish new fungi, the world would quickly be overwhelmed. The vast majority of spores never find suitable conditions for growth, highlighting the challenging nature of fungal life and the importance of producing enormous numbers of offspring. This reproductive strategy, producing massive numbers of tiny, lightweight offspring, is perfectly adapted to the unpredictable nature of suitable habitat for fungi. It's a numbers game played on a scale that's difficult for humans to comprehend. Some mushrooms can survive in space. NASA has conducted experiments exposing various fungi to the harsh conditions of space, and the results have been remarkable. Some mushroom species can survive the vacuum of space, extreme temperatures, and intense radiation that would quickly kill most other life forms. These hardy fungi enter a dormant state when exposed to space conditions, essentially pausing all biological activity until more favourable conditions return. Their tough cell walls and efficient DNA repair mechanisms help them survive damage from cosmic radiation. Some fungi don't just survive in space, they seem to adapt to it. Studies on the International Space Station have shown that certain fungi actually grow faster and produce more robust cell walls when grown in microgravity conditions. This suggests that some fungi might be pre-adapted to space environments. These findings have important implications for space exploration. Fungi might be among the first Earth organisms capable of surviving and even thriving on other planets. They could potentially play important roles in establishing life support systems for human space colonization. Mushrooms grow faster at night than during the day. Most people assume that mushrooms, like plants, grow primarily during daylight hours. However, research has shown that many mushroom species actually grow faster at night than during the day. This nocturnal growth pattern might be related to humidity levels, which are typically higher at night. The growth rate of some mushrooms at night can be truly spectacular. Certain species can add several inches to their height in a single night under optimal conditions. Time-lapse photography reveals this rapid growth as an almost magical process, with mushrooms seeming to unfurl and expand like living umbrellas. This nighttime growth preference might also be an adaptation to avoid competition with plants for resources during daylight hours. By growing primarily at night, mushrooms can take advantage of the cooler, more humid conditions that favour fungal activity, while avoiding the peak activity periods of potential competitors. The rapid nighttime growth of mushrooms contributes to their seemingly magical appearance. People might walk through a forest during the day and see nothing unusual, only to return the next morning to find mushrooms that weren't there the day before, fully formed and seemingly conjured from thin air. Some mushrooms can tell time and respond to seasons. Despite lacking sophisticated nervous systems, many mushrooms demonstrate remarkable ability to track time and respond to seasonal changes. They seem to possess internal biological clocks that help them time their reproductive cycles to coincide with optimal conditions. Some mushrooms fruit only in spring, others only in fall. Some appear consistently after the first autumn rains, while others wait for specific temperature patterns or day-length changes. This timing is often so precise that experienced mushroom hunters can predict when and where different species will appear. The mechanisms behind this temporal awareness are still being studied, but they likely involve sensitivity to temperature patterns, moisture levels, and possibly even changes in day length. Mushrooms integrate these environmental cues to make decisions about when to invest energy in reproduction. This seasonal timing represents a form of environmental intelligence, the ability to process multiple sources of information and make complex decisions about resource allocation and reproductive timing. It's another reminder that intelligence in nature can take many forms beyond what we typically recognize. Mushrooms can live at extreme depths underground. While most people think of mushrooms as surface organisms, some species live at incredible depths beneath the Earth's surface. Fungal networks have been found thriving thousands of feet underground, in mines, caves, and deep soil layers where no light has ever penetrated. These deep-dwelling fungi feed on organic matter that filters down from the surface, or on the chemical energy available in deep rock formations. Some appear to be capable of extracting nutrients directly from minerals, essentially eating rock to survive. The conditions at these depths are extreme. Constant darkness, high pressure, limited oxygen, and often elevated temperatures. Yet fungi have found ways to thrive in these challenging environments, often becoming the dominant life forms in deep subsurface ecosystems. These discoveries have expanded our understanding of where life can exist on Earth and potentially on other planets. The ability of fungi to survive and grow in such extreme conditions suggests that life might be possible in environments that were previously thought to be completely sterile. Some mushrooms change their growth patterns based on the moon phases. Traditional mushroom hunters have long claimed that lunar cycles affect mushroom growth, and recent scientific studies suggest there might be truth to these traditional beliefs. Some mushroom species show increased fruiting activity during certain moon phases, particularly around the full moon. The mechanisms behind this lunar influence aren't fully understood, but they might be related to changes in gravitational forces, subtle variations in light levels during nighttime hours, or even electromagnetic effects. The gravitational pull of the moon affects many biological processes, from ocean tides to animal behavior. Some commercial mushroom growers have begun experimenting with timing their harvests according to lunar cycles, reporting improvements in yield and quality. While the scientific evidence is still being gathered, the consistency of traditional observations across different cultures suggests that lunar influences on fungal growth might be real. This connection to lunar cycles adds another layer to the mysterious nature of mushrooms, linking these earthbound organisms to cosmic rhythms that govern so many aspects of life on our planet. Mushrooms can form partnerships with nearly any plant. The mycorrhizal relationships that fungi form with plant roots are among the most important partnerships in nature, and they're remarkably flexible. A single fungal species might partner with dozens of different plant species, while individual plants often maintain relationships with multiple fungal partners simultaneously. These partnerships are so fundamental that most plants cannot survive without them. Over 90% of plant species depend on mycorrhizal fungi for essential nutrients, particularly phosphorus, which is often limiting in natural soils. In return, the plants provide the fungi with carbohydrates produced through photosynthesis. What's remarkable is how these partnerships can adapt to changing conditions. During drought, fungal partners might provide extra water to their plant associates. When nutrients are scarce, the fungi increase their mining of soil minerals. The relationship is dynamic and responsive, constantly adjusting to environmental conditions. These fungal-plant partnerships represent one of the most successful, collaborative arrangements in the history of life. They've enabled plants to colonize virtually every terrestrial environment on Earth and have been a driving force in the evolution of complex terrestrial ecosystems. Mushrooms are nature's recyclers, breaking down almost everything organic. In nature's grand recycling system, mushrooms serve as the primary decomposers, capable of breaking down almost any organic material. Their enzymes can digest cellulose, lignin, chitin, and countless other complex organic compounds that few other organisms can process. This decomposition ability makes mushrooms essential for nutrient cycling in ecosystems. Without fungi breaking down dead plant and animal matter, nutrients would remain locked up in dead tissue, unavailable for new life. Fungi essentially mine these organic materials, extracting valuable elements and making them available to other organisms. Different mushroom species specialize in different types of decomposition. Some focus on freshly fallen leaves, others on woody debris, and still others on animal remains. This specialization ensures that virtually all organic waste gets processed efficiently, with different fungi handling different stages of decomposition. The efficiency of this natural recycling system is remarkable. Mushrooms can break down materials that are resistant to decay, processing them completely and leaving behind only mineral elements that enrich the soil. They transform death into life, waste into resources, and chaos into order. Some mushrooms can clean up oil spills and chemical contamination. Certain mushroom species possess the remarkable ability to break down petroleum products, industrial chemicals, and other environmental pollutants. This process, known as mycoremediation, represents one of the most promising approaches to environmental cleanup. Oyster mushrooms have been successfully used to clean up oil-contaminated soil, breaking down petroleum hydrocarbons into harmless compounds. Other species can process heavy metals, pesticides, and even some radioactive materials. The mushrooms essentially eat the pollutants, transforming toxic compounds into benign substances. What makes mycoremediation particularly attractive is that it's relatively inexpensive, requires no external energy inputs, and actually improves soil health as it works. Unlike harsh chemical cleanup methods, mushroom-based remediation leaves the environment better than it was before contamination occurred. Research into mycoremediation is expanding rapidly as scientists discover new applications. Mushrooms are being tested for cleaning up everything from diesel fuel spills to pharmaceutical contamination in water supplies. Nature's own cleanup crew may hold keys to solving some of humanity's worst environmental problems. Mushrooms can help forests recover from disasters. After natural disasters like fires, floods, or storms, mushrooms often play crucial roles in forest recovery. They help stabilize soil, prevent erosion, and create conditions that support the growth of new vegetation. Fire-following mushrooms appear quickly in burned areas, helping to break down charred organic matter and begin the soil-building process. Their mycelial networks help bind soil particles together, preventing erosion during the vulnerable period before new plants can establish themselves. Mushrooms also facilitate the establishment of new plant life by forming mycorrhizal partnerships with seedlings and young plants. These fungal partners provide essential nutrients and water to help new vegetation survive in the challenging conditions that exist after disasters. The recovery process can take years or decades, but mushrooms are patient partners throughout the entire process. They adapt their activities to support whatever stage of recovery the ecosystem has reached, demonstrating remarkable flexibility and persistence in their healing work. Some mushrooms can remove heavy metals from contaminated soil. Certain mushroom species have evolved the ability to tolerate and even concentrate heavy metals that are toxic to most other organisms. This metal tolerance makes them valuable tools for cleaning up contaminated sites. These mushrooms can extract metals like lead, cadmium, mercury, and arsenic from soil, concentrating them in their fruiting bodies. The contaminated mushrooms can then be harvested and disposed of safely, effectively removing the metals from the environment. Some species are so efficient at metal extraction that they're being used to mine valuable metals from low-grade ores or industrial waste. This biological mining approach is much less environmentally destructive than traditional mining methods and can even extract metals from materials that are too dilute for conventional processing. The mushroom's ability to handle toxic metals comes from specialized cellular mechanisms that either sequester the metals in harmless forms or actively transport them out of vital cellular components. These natural detoxification systems represent millions of years of evolutionary adaptation to metal-rich environments. Mushrooms help prevent soil erosion. The mycelial networks produced by mushrooms create extensive web-like structures in soil that help bind soil particles together and prevent erosion. These biological nets are particularly important on slopes and in areas where vegetation is sparse. The thread-like mycelium acts like natural rebar, reinforcing soil structure and making it more resistant to the erosive forces of wind and water. Studies have shown that soils with healthy fungal populations are significantly more stable than soils lacking these fungal networks. This soil stabilizing function becomes particularly important in disturbed environments where normal vegetation hasn't yet re-established. Mushroom mycelium can provide immediate soil protection, while slower growing plants work to colonize the area. The erosion prevention provided by fungi is especially valuable in agricultural settings, where soil loss is a major concern. Farming practices that support fungal populations often result in better soil retention and improved long-term productivity. Some mushrooms can survive and clean up radioactive contamination. Perhaps the most dramatic example of mushrooms' cleanup abilities is their response to radioactive contamination. After the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, certain fungal species not only survived the intense radiation, but actually appeared to thrive in the contaminated environment. These radiotropic fungi seem to be using melanin pigments to convert gamma radiation into chemical energy, similar to how plants use chlorophyll to convert sunlight into energy. They were essentially feeding on radiation, growing more robustly in highly radioactive areas than in normal environments. Scientists are studying these radiation-resistant fungi to understand how they might be used for cleanup of other radioactive sites. Some species appear capable of breaking down radioactive compounds or sequestering radioactive elements in ways that reduce their environmental impact. The discovery of fungi that can thrive in radioactive environments has implications beyond environmental cleanup. It suggests that life might be possible in radiation-rich environments throughout the universe, expanding our ideas about where life might exist beyond Earth. Mushrooms improve soil fertility naturally. Beyond their role as decomposers, mushrooms actively improve soil fertility through multiple mechanisms. Their mycelial networks increase soil structure, creating networks of channels that improve water infiltration and root penetration. Mushrooms also produce various organic compounds that enhance soil chemistry. They release organic acids that help break down minerals, making nutrients more available to plants. They produce hormones and other bioactive compounds that can stimulate plant growth and improve plant health. The relationship between mushrooms and soil fertility is so strong that agricultural systems with healthy fungal populations typically require fewer external inputs like fertilizers and pesticides. The fungi provide many of the services that farmers otherwise have to supply artificially. Traditional agricultural systems often developed practices that supported soil fungi, recognizing their importance for long-term productivity. Modern sustainable agriculture increasingly focuses on rebuilding fungal populations in agricultural soils as a key strategy for environmental and economic sustainability. Mushrooms are being developed into new materials. Scientists are discovering that mushroom mycelium can be grown and processed into materials that could replace many synthetic products. Mycelium-based materials can be shaped into leather alternatives, packaging materials, building insulation, and even structural components. These fungal materials are completely biodegradable, require minimal energy to produce, and can be grown from agricultural waste products. Unlike synthetic materials that can persist in the environment for centuries, mushroom-based materials break down naturally when their useful life is over. The properties of mycelium materials can be controlled by adjusting growing conditions, allowing scientists to create materials with specific characteristics. Some are fire-resistant, others are waterproof, and still others can be made as strong as conventional plastics. As concerns about plastic pollution and sustainable manufacturing grow, mushroom-based materials offer promising alternatives. They represent a shift toward biological manufacturing processes that work with natural systems rather than against them. Scientists are exploring mushrooms for new medicines. The pharmaceutical potential of mushrooms is vast and largely untapped. With over 140,000 known species and potentially millions more undiscovered, mushrooms represent an enormous library of potential therapeutic compounds. Mushrooms can be grown on organic waste that would otherwise be discarded, turning trash into food. They require no soil and can be cultivated in compact controlled systems that would be practical in spacecraft or planetary habitats. Their rapid growth and high nutritional value make them efficient converters of resources into food. Beyond direct consumption, mushrooms could help create the soil-like growing medium needed for other crops in space. Their decomposition activities and soil-building properties could be essential for establishing sustainable agricultural systems on other planets. Some researchers envision closed-loop life support systems where mushrooms play central roles in waste processing, food production, and environmental management. They could be among the first Earth organisms to establish permanent populations beyond our planet. Mushroom cultivation is expanding worldwide. Commercial mushroom cultivation is one of the fastest-growing areas of agriculture worldwide. New cultivation techniques are making it possible to grow mushrooms in environments and climates where it was previously impossible. Vertical farming techniques allow mushroom production in urban environments, reducing transportation costs and providing fresh food closer to consumers. Automated systems are making cultivation more efficient and reducing labour requirements. The expansion isn't limited to traditional food mushrooms. Cultivation of medicinal mushrooms, specialty gourmet varieties, and industrial mushrooms for materials production is growing rapidly. Each application requires different techniques and serves different markets. This expansion is creating new economic opportunities, particularly in rural areas where mushroom cultivation can provide sustainable livelihoods. The relatively low startup costs and quick turnaround times make mushroom farming accessible to small-scale producers. Some mushrooms may help combat climate change. Mushrooms could play important roles in addressing climate change through several mechanisms. Their ability to sequester carbon in soil through their extensive mycelial networks could help remove atmospheric carbon dioxide. Certain mushrooms show promise for producing biofuels that could replace fossil fuels. Others could be used to create materials that replace energy-intensive synthetic products. The carbon footprint of mushroom-based products is typically much lower than conventional alternatives. Mushrooms in forest ecosystems help trees grow larger and store more carbon. By supporting forest health and productivity, fungal networks contribute to one of the planet's most important carbon storage systems. Large-scale cultivation of mushrooms for various purposes could create significant carbon sinks while producing useful products. This represents a potential win-win scenario where economic activity actually helps address environmental challenges. Mushrooms are inspiring new technologies. The study of how mushrooms grow, communicate, and process information is inspiring new approaches to technology and engineering. Researchers are developing computers that use fungal networks for processing information, taking advantage of fungi's natural networking abilities. The way mushrooms optimize their growth patterns and resource allocation is being studied for applications in logistics, urban planning, and network design. Fungal algorithms could improve efficiency in various human systems. The materials science applications are equally exciting. Understanding how mushrooms create their complex structures is leading to new approaches for manufacturing lightweight, strong materials with minimal energy input. Biomimicry based on fungal systems could revolutionize multiple industries, from construction to electronics to transportation. Nature's engineering principles, perfected over millions of years, often surpass human engineering solutions in efficiency and sustainability. The mushroom industry supports millions of livelihoods globally. Mushroom cultivation and processing now supports millions of jobs worldwide. From small-scale farmers to industrial processors to researchers developing new applications. The industry provides economic opportunities across the entire spectrum of economic development. In many developing countries, mushroom cultivation provides important income opportunities for rural communities. The relatively low investment requirements and quick returns make it accessible to people with limited resources. The processing and value-added industries around mushrooms are also growing rapidly. From dried and powdered mushrooms to extracts and pharmaceutical preparations, the downstream industries create additional employment and economic value. As the applications for mushrooms continue to expand, the industry is expected to grow significantly, creating even more opportunities for sustainable economic development around the world. Every mushroom species has its own personality. Despite appearing similar to casual observers, each mushroom species has its own distinct characteristics, its own personality, if you will. Some species are aggressive colonizers, quickly taking over new territory. Others are patient and conservative, growing slowly but steadily over many years. Some mushrooms are generalists, able to grow in many different environments and form partnerships with various plants. Others are specialists, requiring very specific conditions and forming relationships only with particular hosts. These different approaches to life create a rich tapestry of fungal diversity. Observing mushrooms over time reveals these personality differences. Some species appear predictably in the same locations year after year. Others are wanderers, showing up in unexpected places when conditions are right. Some are social, growing in large groups, while others prefer solitary existence. These behavioral patterns reflect millions of years of evolutionary adaptation to different ecological niches. Each mushroom species has found its own way to survive and thrive, developing strategies that work for its particular circumstances and challenges. We've only discovered a fraction of the world's mushroom species. Scientists estimate that we've identified only about 5% of the mushroom species that exist on Earth. This means that somewhere between 2 and 5 million species of fungi remain to be discovered and studied. New species are being found constantly, in remote forests, in urban environments, in extreme habitats, and even in familiar places that hadn't been thoroughly examined before. Some of these discoveries come from remote expeditions to untouched wilderness areas, while others are found in suburban backyards. Each new species discovered adds to our understanding of the incredible diversity of life on Earth. Many of these unknown species likely possess unique properties, new medicines, novel materials, or ecological functions that we haven't yet imagined. The pace of discovery is limited not by the availability of new species, but by the number of trained mycologists available to study them. There's a whole world of fungal diversity waiting to be explored and understood. Mushrooms may have been Earth's first decomposers. Fossil evidence suggests that fungi were among the first organisms to develop the ability to break down complex organic materials. This capability may have been crucial for the development of life on land, as it allowed nutrients to be recycled from dead organic matter. Before fungi evolved their decomposition abilities, dead organic material would have accumulated without being broken down. This would have created a world where nutrients became increasingly locked up in undecomposed matter, potentially limiting the development of complex ecosystems. The evolution of fungal decomposition capabilities essentially created the foundation for terrestrial life as we know it. By recycling nutrients from dead material, fungi made it possible for complex food webs to develop on land. This ancient role as Earth's recyclers continues today, with fungi still serving as the primary decomposers in most terrestrial ecosystems. They've been performing this essential function for hundreds of millions of years, quietly enabling life to flourish on our planet. Some mushrooms glow brighter when disturbed. The bioluminescent properties of some mushrooms become more intense when they're touched or disturbed. This response might serve as a defense mechanism, startling potential predators or attracting attention that could bring help from other organisms. The increased glow appears to be triggered by mechanical stimulation or chemical stress. When cells are damaged, or when the mushroom detects potential threats, it ramps up its light production. This creates a fascinating feedback loop where interaction with the mushroom triggers a visible response. This responsive bioluminescence makes these mushrooms feel particularly alive and interactive. Unlike passive objects that simply reflect light, these mushrooms actively respond to your presence with their own light production. The mechanism behind this response is still being studied, but it represents another example of the sophisticated ways that mushrooms interact with their environment, despite lacking nervous systems or obvious sensory organs. Mushroom spores can remain viable for decades. Once released, mushroom spores can survive in dormant states for extraordinarily long periods, sometimes decades or even longer. This longevity ensures that mushrooms can take advantage of favourable conditions, even if they only occur rarely. Spores have been found viable in soil samples that are decades old, waiting patiently for the right combination of moisture, temperature, and nutrients to trigger germination. Some spores can survive freezing, drought, and other extreme conditions that would kill most other organisms. This patience is a key survival strategy for mushrooms. Since suitable growing conditions can be unpredictable and temporary, having spores that can wait for optimal conditions greatly increases the chances of successful reproduction. The durability of mushroom spores also means that disturbed ecosystems can recover their fungal populations from spores that have been dormant in the soil for years, helping to restore ecological balance after disturbances. Ancient mushroom specimens have been found preserved in amber. Scientists have discovered mushroom specimens preserved in amber that are over 100 million years old. These ancient fossils provide remarkable glimpses into the evolution of fungi and show that many modern mushroom forms have existed largely unchanged for vast periods of time. The detail preserved in these amber specimens is extraordinary. Sometimes individual cells and internal structures are visible, providing insights into ancient fungal anatomy and physiology. Some specimens even preserve spores and other reproductive structures. These discoveries help scientists understand how mushrooms evolved and diversified over geological time. They show that the basic forms and functions we see in modern mushrooms were established very early in fungal evolution. The consistency between ancient and modern specimens suggests that mushrooms found successful strategies for survival very early in their evolutionary history and have maintained these successful approaches for millions of years. Some mushrooms can predict weather changes. Traditional knowledge from many cultures suggests that certain mushrooms are sensitive to atmospheric pressure changes and can indicate approaching weather systems. Some mushroom species appear to fruit more readily before rainstorms or pressure changes. This weather sensitivity might be related to their dependence on moisture for reproduction. Changes in atmospheric pressure often precede changes in humidity and precipitation, so responding to pressure changes could help mushrooms time their fruiting to coincide with favourable conditions. Modern scientific study of this phenomenon is limited, but the consistency of traditional observations across different cultures suggests there might be real physiological responses to atmospheric conditions that we don't yet fully understand. Whether this represents true weather prediction or simply sensitivity to the atmospheric conditions that often precede weather changes, it demonstrates another way that mushrooms are intimately connected to their environment. Mushrooms communicate through chemical signals. Research is revealing that mushrooms use sophisticated chemical communication systems to coordinate their behaviour and respond to environmental changes. Different chemical signals can indicate food sources, threats, or opportunities for reproduction. These chemical messages can travel through air, water, or soil, allowing mushrooms to communicate across distances. Some signals appear to be species-specific, while others might be understood by multiple fungal species, or even by plants and other organisms. The complexity of these chemical communication systems suggests that mushrooms possess much more sophisticated behavioural repertoires than previously recognised. They're not passive organisms simply reacting to their immediate environment, but active participants in complex ecological conversations. Understanding fungal chemical communication could have important applications in agriculture, forest management, and environmental restoration. It might allow us to work more effectively with natural fungal systems rather than against them. the study of mushrooms reveals new mysteries every year. Despite centuries of study, mushrooms continue to surprise scientists with new discoveries about their capabilities, their ecological roles, and their potential applications. Each answer leads to new questions. Each discovery opens new avenues for research. Recent discoveries include mushrooms that can process plastic waste, fungi that form electrical networks, and species that demonstrate memory-like behaviors. The more we learn about mushrooms, the more we realize how much we still don't know. This ongoing process of discovery keeps the study of mushrooms exciting and relevant. There's always something new to learn, always another mystery to investigate. The fungal kingdom continues to challenge our assumptions about life and intelligence. Mushrooms teach us about patience and timing. In our fast-paced world, mushrooms offer lessons in patience and the importance of proper timing. They show us that some of life's most important processes cannot be rushed, that waiting for the right conditions often leads to better outcomes than forcing premature action. A mushroom might wait years or even decades for the perfect combination of temperature, moisture, and nutrients before fruiting. This patience isn't passive, it's an active strategy that maximizes the chances of successful reproduction when conditions finally align. This fungal wisdom about timing applies to many aspects of human life. Like mushrooms, we often achieve better results by waiting for the right opportunities, rather than forcing outcomes when conditions aren't optimal. Mushrooms remind us that growth doesn't always have to be visible to be real. Most of a mushroom's growth happens underground, invisible and unmeasured, before the visible fruiting body ever appears. Similarly, much of our own growth and development happens quietly, internally, before it becomes apparent to others. Mushrooms show us the power of networks and cooperation. The fungal networks that connect forest organisms demonstrate the power of cooperation and mutual support. These networks show that individual success often depends on the health and success of the entire community. In nature's economy, the organisms that thrive are often those that contribute most effectively to the networks they're part of. Mushrooms succeed not by competing with other organisms, but by finding ways to benefit their entire ecological community. This cooperative approach to success challenges individualistic models of achievement. Mushrooms show us that the most sustainable forms of success are those that lift up entire systems rather than just individual organisms. The generosity of mushrooms, sharing resources with struggling neighbours, supporting young plants, cleaning up environmental damage, demonstrates that giving and receiving are part of the same cycle in healthy systems. Mushrooms demonstrate resilience through flexibility. Mushrooms show remarkable resilience in the face of environmental challenges, but this resilience comes through flexibility rather than rigid resistance. When conditions change, mushrooms adapt their strategies rather than fighting against the changes. This flexibility allows mushrooms to thrive in an enormous range of environments and conditions. They bend without breaking, adjust without losing their essential identity, and find opportunities in situations that might seem like setbacks. The resilience of mushrooms isn't about being tough or impervious to change. It's about being responsive, adaptable, and creative in the face of challenges. They show us that survival often depends more on flexibility than on strength. This approach to resilience has lessons for human challenges as well. Like mushrooms, we often succeed better by adapting to changed circumstances rather than rigidly insisting that conditions should be different than they are. Mushrooms remind us that death feeds life. One of the most profound lessons mushrooms teach is about the relationship between death and life. Mushrooms specialize in transforming dead and decaying matter into the building blocks for new life. This process isn't morbid or depressing, it's hopeful and regenerative. Mushrooms show us that nothing is truly wasted in nature, that even death serves life, and that endings are also beginnings. In human terms, this might translate to understanding that our failures, losses, and endings can become the raw material for new growth and opportunities. Like mushrooms transforming fallen logs into rich soil, We can learn to compost our disappointments into wisdom. Mushrooms teach us that some of life's most important work happens in the dark, quietly, invisibly, but no less vital for being unseen. Decomposition, like grief or healing, often requires darkness and privacy to do its work. Mushrooms show us the importance of staying grounded. Despite producing reproductive structures that can become quite tall, mushrooms remain firmly connected to their underground networks. They show us the importance of staying rooted while reaching upward. This grounding allows mushrooms to access resources and information from their network, even as they extend themselves into new territory. Their above-ground growth is supported and nourished by their below-ground connections. For humans, this might translate to maintaining connections with our communities, values, and sources of support even as we grow and explore new possibilities. Like mushrooms, we often achieve our highest potential when we're well-rooted. Mushrooms demonstrate that strength can come from flexibility and connection, rather than from isolation and rigidity. Their resilience comes from being part of something larger than themselves. Mushrooms demonstrate that strength can come from flexibility and connection, rather than from isolation and rigidity. Their resilience comes from being part of something larger than themselves. Mushrooms teach us about the beauty of impermanence. The brief existence of most mushrooms, appearing for just days or weeks before disappearing, reminds us about the beauty and poignancy of impermanence. Their temporary presence makes them more precious, not less. This impermanence isn't a flaw in the mushroom's design, it's an essential part of their strategy. By investing their energy in brief, intense periods of reproduction rather than maintaining permanent structures, mushrooms can take advantage of optimal conditions when they occur. The beauty of mushrooms is enhanced by their temporality. Their brief appearance makes encounters with them feel special, gifts to be appreciated in the moment because they won't last forever. This perspective on impermanence can help us appreciate the temporary nature of many beautiful experiences in human life. Like mushrooms, many of our most meaningful moments are brief and unrepeatable, made more valuable by their transience. Mushrooms demonstrate the power of small actions amplified through networks. Individual mushrooms might seem small and insignificant, but through their network connections, their impacts can be enormous. A small mushroom can influence the health of an entire forest through its network relationships. This shows us how individual actions, when connected to larger networks and systems, can have effects far beyond what we might expect from their apparent size. Small contributions to networks can create large-scale changes. In human terms, this might translate to understanding how our individual actions ripple through social and ecological networks, creating impacts that extend far beyond what we can see directly. Mushrooms show us that we don't have to be large or dramatic to be important. Some of the most crucial work in ecosystems is done by small, quiet organisms working persistently over time. Mushrooms teach us about the intelligence of living systems. Despite lacking brains or nervous systems, mushrooms demonstrate sophisticated problem-solving abilities, memory-like behaviors, and decision-making capabilities. They show us that intelligence can take many forms beyond what we typically recognize. This fungal intelligence is distributed throughout their network structure, rather than centralized in any single organ. It emerges from the interactions of simple components working together, creating complex behaviors from simple rules. This model of distributed intelligence has applications in many fields, from computer science to organizational management. It shows us alternative ways of thinking about intelligence, consciousness, and decision-making. Mushrooms remind us that intelligence doesn't require language, culture, or technology. The natural world is full of intelligent behaviors and solutions that we're only beginning to understand and appreciate. As our journey through the world of mushrooms draws to a peaceful close, let yourself sink deeper into relaxation, imagining yourself walking through a quiet forest where these gentle organisms go about their ancient work. The air is soft and humid, rich with the earthy scents of decomposing leaves and growing things. In this imaginary forest, Mushrooms appear like small beacons scattered across the woodland floor. Some glow with their own soft light, creating natural lanterns that guide your way. Others cluster around the bases of trees, their caps forming tiny communities of different shapes and colours. You don't need to identify them or understand their functions completely. Simply appreciate their quiet presence, their patient persistence, their gentle contribution to the endless cycle of growth and renewal that keeps the forest alive and healthy. Feel the soft forest floor beneath your feet, rich with the work of countless mushrooms and other decomposers who have transformed fallen leaves and branches into the dark, fertile soil that supports new life. This is the foundation they've created, the gift they've given to all the other forest dwellers. Listen to the quiet sounds of the forest, the gentle drip of moisture from leaves, the soft whisper of wind through branches, the subtle sounds of growth and decay happening all around you. This is mushroom time, slow and patient, measured in seasons and years rather than hours and minutes. Let your breathing slow to match the rhythm of the forest, the deep, patient pulse of systems that have been operating for millions of years. Feel yourself becoming part of this ancient rhythm, connected to cycles that are much larger and longer than your individual life. Imagine the vast network of fungal threads beneath your feet, carrying messages and nutrients between trees, facilitating conversations in chemical languages that we're only beginning to understand. You're standing on a living internet that connects the entire forest in a web of mutual support and communication. As you rest in this peaceful place, feel the wisdom of the mushroom settling into your awareness. Their lessons about patience, cooperation, resilience, and renewal become part of your understanding, offering gentle guidance for your own life and challenges. The mushrooms ask nothing of you except perhaps to notice them occasionally, to appreciate their quiet work, to understand that you're part of the same web of life that they help to maintain. In their gentle persistence, they offer a model of how to live with purpose while remaining humble. Feel yourself supported by the forest network, held by the same systems that support the trees and other plants. You belong to this web of life, connected to every other living thing through chains of relationship that extend back to the beginning of life itself. Let the peacefulness of the mushroom kingdom flow through you, carrying away stress and worry, replacing them with a sense of belonging and connectedness. You're part of something much larger than yourself, part of systems that have been caring for life on Earth for hundreds of millions of years. As you prepare for sleep, imagine yourself like a mushroom spore, carried gently on the breeze to a place of rest and renewal. Tomorrow you can grow again, but for now it's time to be still, to be quiet, to trust in the natural rhythms that support all life. The mushrooms will continue their work while you sleep, patiently breaking down and building up, connecting and communicating, supporting the great web of life that includes us all. Their quiet presence is a reminder that important work often happens without fanfare, that the most essential functions of life are carried out by humble, dedicated organisms working in peaceful cooperation. Rest now in the knowledge that you're held by systems much wiser and more patient than anything humans have created. Feel the deep stability of natural cycles, the reliability of organisms that have been perfecting their work for longer than we can imagine. Let the gentle wisdom of mushrooms carry you into dreams of connection and cooperation, of patient growth and generous sharing, of networks that support all members, of cycles that transform endings into beginnings. Sleep well, knowing that when you wake, the mushrooms will still be there, still working quietly to support the web of life that includes us all. They are patient teachers, humble healers, generous partners in the great project of keeping Earth alive and thriving. In the silence of the forest night, feel yourself held by the same forces that guide the mushrooms, the slow, steady pulse of life itself, the ancient rhythm of growth and rest, death and renewal, separation and connection. The mushrooms have shared their secrets with you tonight. Secrets about resilience and patience, cooperation and generosity, the beauty of impermanence and the power of quiet persistence. Carry these gifts with you as you drift into peaceful sleep, supported by the knowledge that you're part of something beautiful, ancient, and endlessly creative. Good night, fellow traveller in the web of life. May your dreams be as patient as mushroom growth, as generous as fungal networks, and as peaceful as a forest floor where countless small organisms work together to create something beautiful and alive. Sleep deeply, rest well, and remember that tomorrow is another day to be part of the wonderful interconnected web of life that mushrooms have been quietly maintaining for longer than we can imagine.